I'm going to be talking about queries today, and the queries, they are the power feature of your databases. What good does it have all your database nicely organized? The whole reason for having it organized is so you can go get the data in multiple ways very, very quickly. Like your search that gives you a billion results from a search in like half a second. It's because they have a super duper database, and when you search for something, you're running a query. And that's what gives you your information. And Sabrina, we have, for not just you, Sabrina, everybody, I love y'all, is I have done something here for you just in case you had a little trouble with assignment 1. And I'm gonna, oh, not that guy, I don't want to be John Smart. Just in case you had trouble with an assignment 1 in Access, if you go to assignments in Access assignment 2, I have a starting file in case you had a problem getting one filled in with all those tables. So because we need to use all those tables that we were supposed to have in AC1, I gave you a one to start with in case yours doesn't have those tables, just because I love y'all. All right, here we go. We're going to now build some queries. First of all, let's review what we have. I'm going to start up Access, open up that AC2 from section 2 there that I started last time. Basically, we ended last session by basically making a copy of AC1, and it had all these tables in there. I actually did a little more playing around. I actually imported another table by finding some data out online, and I imported data having to do with a listing of diseases that they found and the treatments, and some record that was kept on some veterinarial database, just to see that I could import data. But don't worry about that. You have 5 tables. Let's take a look at what you have in your tables. Remember, you have your appointments table, and this is like the central table to all your other tables. It references something in the patient table, and then it has appointment, date, and time, and it references the treatment number in the treatments table, and the veterinarian in the veterinarian's table, and the owner in the owner's table. This is the relationship part of relational databases. This table is related to all the other tables. It kind of pulls them all together because we're making appointments. This is where we make our money in our company. In our veterinarian, we charge for our appointments. Now, right now, the only thing we have keeping track of costs are the treatment costs. So this is not a fully complete database. Some database designer, if they actually wanted to make a full, ready for a veterinarian to keep track of things, somehow would have to add time spent and the cost of the veterinarian and the time it took for the appointment, multiply that by the time per hour of the veterinarian, and keep track of charges to owners. And there would be a lot of extra tables. So this is a simplified version of what a veterinarian database would look like if it were fully functional. But for now, we have something. First of all, the appointments table. I can view what's in there. And remember, with Access, it doesn't like you having something open sometimes and wanting to do something else with it. So it's always best, if you're looking at a table, to close it when you're done and not have 1,000 things open like I do on my tabs for my browser. I have 1,000 tabs open. So I can look at the contents of each table in case I want to edit it or confirm what I should be finding there if I have a query that isn't working. And because I adjusted the column, it's asking me to save. So I have all these tables. Every table doesn't relate to, well, actually doesn't, the pet table, the patient's table, does relate to the owner's table here. We see they do refer to their owner. And in Access Project 3, we actually see there is a tool for viewing and establishing those relationships between tables. Right now, we're just going to worry about querying the information. So there's my treatments table, treatment numbers and costs, and then my veterinarians, my 2 veterinarians that I have on record. Okay, now let's get going building queries. The power of databases. So we'll start right at the very start, where we viewed our tables, we have various queries, and we're going to introduce you to this thing called Design View. And here's how it works. Design View is accessed by going to Create, and I'm going to, right away, knowing that I want to create a query about my appointments, I'm going to select my appointments table when I'm getting ready to create the query. That just makes it a little, I'll call it a little shortcut. If I know I want to get information about my appointments table and I have that selected, watch what happens now when I go to create. We're not going to use the wizard. We're going to become the wizard by doing our own design. So click on Query Design, and I don't need to see the property sheet. Ignore that. It pops me in to a design grid in order for me to design a query. First thing I need to do is decide which table I want to get query information out of. And that is done by clicking over here on Add Tables and double-click Appointments. If you don't have this showing, you can click Add Tables here to bring that up, or you can right-click Add Table, Show Table, and you can bring that up as well. All I care about right now is that the appointments table is showing up here. If I accidentally put an extra table that I didn't want in there, I can either start over, or I can remove the table and then show other tables. So double click to show, and then I can close that up just to keep it from distracting me. So what we have now, we have our design grid showing what table we want to get information out of. What I do now to decide what information to show that's going to show up in my data grid, I care about the data having to do with the appointment ID, double click, the patient ID, date, time, double click, double click, double click, and double click. Now, this is a query that's essentially telling me, show me every field in the appointments table. So this is basically the same as though I'm just viewing the table as though I were just editing the table. And I can now see all my appointments. So I'm in Design View. I click View here to view the data. And think of this as showing me the results of a query that shows all the columns. So I see the entire contents of the appointments table. Design View, I am building from the appointments table a view of every column. To see what column to view, I just double click in there and it pops up onto the data grid. And now we are, I think I'm going to close it. It didn't tell me a name to give that one. Let's give it a name. Let's call it AC2-5. Let's go save this now as a query. I'm going to now Control S after creating this view of my data in my table. Control S and call it AC2-5 and basically call it appointments. Now this is a pretty worthless query right now because all I'm doing is viewing what's in my appointments table because I've asked to see in my design grid every field of my appointments table. So power comes in the criteria section. But we'll be doing that as we build up on our knowledge here. So we have datasheet view, decide what table to show. This, as I double click on elements here, they'll show up in a column here. And I think I can, if I double clicked again, say I clicked on patient ID again, I think it would add it again and show it again in my results. Like, oh, I'm viewing it twice, and because it can't use the same name on the results, it had to give that a funky name, Expert 1001. If I accidentally have a field in there twice, I can click on the little gray bar right at the very top, and I can either hit the delete key, I think, or right click cut if I had an extra field that I accidentally put in there. I can click on that little gray, and I can rearrange my columns however I would like just by grabbing that left and right. Now the order of the columns doesn't matter most of the time. See how it now just reordered my display. So I can choose to list these in whatever order I want in my query of the data out of the appointments table. A term we call this a query on the appointments table, because that's the table we're showing data out of. There's the results, there's the design. Results, design. And just to give you a little hint behind the curtain here, what's actually happening is Access is trying to be friendly, helping you to design this type of query language that the database programmers know how to use. Now it's not super complex if you look at it, but it takes a while to learn this syntax. We have the select statement, and then from, where we're getting the data from, and then there's added things here. Essentially, data grid or design grid is basically trying to be friendly rather than telling you here's how to type in order to extract those columns from the table. Just imagine typing, first of all, typing all this without typos, and then understanding what it all means as we want to view data in and design the query. So the view is datasheet view. There's also a run here. Run essentially does the same thing. Some queries actually can do actions like actually change the data, so they give us this run, even though most of the time view does exactly the same thing. So this has been saved. Any change I make to this, if I do a Control S, it will replace the current query with a new query. Now we do have more veterinarians that we'd like to add to our veterinarians or our owners table. And let's see what we do here. We are, oh, they just add more information. They add more owners to our owners field. Are we? Let's see. Do we just have? Looks like they just have us type that in. Oh, we're adding one more owner. Actually, more than a few owners. Let's open our owners table, and let's add some new records to it. Right now, we only have 2 owners. We need a few more owners in our owners table. And I guess it would be nice if we could simply import that. Do they give? It looks like they have us type these in. I was hoping we could import them. And they have a few more pets. Well, let's enter a few more owners. I'm not going to make you do all of them. We'll do a couple owners here. They give a whole list of more owners. They go up to 8 owners. So we'll just do a couple more owners just to show that we can edit the contents of our table. And I'm going to shrink this way so you can see most of the fields. Okay, let's add a few. I'll just add 03 and 04. And it's a capital O, not a 0. O-3. First name is Liz O'Brien. And she lives at 13 Griffiths Drive. In Dunning, Colorado. 85645. Hair phone number 123 456 7890. I'm kind of boring in my phone numbers. And mobile phone of 223 456 7890. And we'll skip any email. I can hit enter, and I think it will take me down. Oh, it doesn't take me down to the bottom. Enter wants to take me across, and finally back to the left side. And we'll just enter one more owner just to get practice at. This is what your maybe the form might be a friendlier way of entering data in here. 04 is Samira. Oh, Samira Patel. 76 Jenkins Way. In Westover, Utah. (85546). And I'll make up phone numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They all have same phone number. Interesting. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. And we'll skip the email part. So we just added a few more owners. And one reason to add them is it makes our queries a little more interesting. Rather than just have 2 results, we get a few more listed in our queries. Now, when we add data, we're not changing the structure to our database table. So it actually, if I close it, unless I have adjusted the column width, it doesn't ask me, do I want to save that? It automatically, anytime I enter a record, it becomes part of the database, and it's only up to you to make backups of your database. Sometimes there's an undo, but it doesn't go back very far. If I close a table, I'm not sure I can open it and undo any changes that I had done previously. So I added a little extra data to the owners table. Now I can close it. I can open that and add data anytime I want, even after I've built some queries. And we could add more pets as well. Let's just add let's see, what do we have for patients? We've got 3 patients. We'll leave our patients there because we want to concentrate on queries. We could always add more patients and make more interesting results in our queries. But I'm gonna skip that part for now, and maybe I'll send you some data that you can import rather than having to retype or type in more data, because we want to focus on queries now. Okay, so I can anytime view the data. Now let's write a query. Another query. Let's do a query on the appointments table. And we want to view everything except the appointment ID in my appointments table. So that's my task. Create a query to view everything in my appointments table except for the ID. That would be create, query design, choose the table appointments, double click it to have it viewed in my design grid. I can close this now. I don't need to view any other tables. The fields I want to see will be double click patient ID, appointment date, appointment time, treatment number, veterinarian, and owner. If I view the data sheet, I'll see every column except for appointment ID listed, almost as though I were looking at the appointments table itself. Because we're just building up our skills with queries. Now comes the power of the query. Now I add a query, I add a criteria. But I would like, where's my veterinarian? Did I miss my veterinarian? I forgot to click veterinarian. Let's add veterinarian. And I want veterinarian to be my first column. Let's drag it to the left by clicking in the once and then letting go and then clicking and dragging it. Now it's the first field listed. I view the data. There I see the veterinarian with that other information. So the order of your results, the order of your columns is determined by their location here. Now I want to put a criteria in for my veterinarian. Right now, it's showing me all the data when I view datasheet view. I only want to see the criteria. I only want to see the results for veterinarian G01. So I put G01 here in the criteria row. If I hit tab or click somewhere else or hit enter, you see that Access turns that into a quote G01. It put quotes around it because this is a short text field, and that quotes indicates this is text that I'm looking for. Now let's see what happens. In my datasheet view, I only see the appointments for veterinarian G01. That's what that design view, and this is where the power of queries is. The criteria of G01 for my veterinarian name basically shows me all my appointments for that particular veterinarian. Now remember that SQL view, what basically is being done is they're adding an extra little line to the database language of what determines whether I select to view that particular piece of data. I only view data where the veterinarian is equal to G01. And this is our first criteria query, and we're going to save this as AC2 dash AC2 what page am I on? AC2 dash, my little window here is not letting me see the page number, 2-8. AC2-8. So let's go ahead and save this now. Control S. Save it as AC2-8 criteria on appointments. So we're saving the query, selecting information from all those columns, but with the criteria on the veterinarian of being only for veterinarian G01. And that's the data I get in that selection. And then I can do a report or do a form that views this, all the appointments for veterinarian G01. Now let's continue with more fancy smanchy queries. I'm going to start again on a query of the owners table. So I'm going to close this. Remember, it's always good to close queries when you're done with them. We're going to now build a new query on the owners table. So we're going to create query design, owners table, double click. The fields that I want to see in my owners table, expand that and choose owner first name, double click, last name, street, city, state, and postal code. So this information would be useful if I want to query for sending out a mailing to them. And my report actually can be mailing labels. You can actually generate mailing label reports. I run view to see what data I'll see. Well, that's all the information in my owners table. Now, again, the strength of queries is the criteria. Let's put in the owner state, instead of, and I see my owner state, there's either CO or UT in my owner state. Let's put, instead of UT, let's put U star. This is called the wild card. The star is the wild card, and what this means is if I hit tab, it will actually put a like in front of that, showing you that the criteria for this state is that it is like, quote, U star, quote. The star means something or anything could come after the letter U, but that the state name has to begin with letter U because there is no star in front of U. So like U star means find every state that begins with letter U, and I think, isn't Utah the only state that begins with letter U? So like U star. This is a example of using a wildcard. And we're going to save this query as AC2-11. Because it's the start of a new query, I can just hit Control S and do save as AC2-11. And this is our wildcard on state name. And remember what that means. Like U star under the state field means show me data where the state begins with letter U. U star means it begins with letter U. And what if I just did U question mark? The question mark also counts as another wildcard. I'll get the same results. U question mark, and the only difference is the question mark stands for one character that has to be there. So although there are no states with singular state of U name, U star means it's U and another letter. U question mark means it's a U and another letter. U star means U and anything, including nothing, can come after the U. So anything that begins with U or U plus another letter would be question mark. I think U question mark is a better choice here, knowing that state names are only going to be two characters, but U star works as well. So that's the wildcard, gives me the criteria. And this is where, when you're searching on Google, their humongous database, when you search for Bible, it essentially puts Bible star around their search terms, and then you get billion results in Google search, because anything with the word Bible in it would give you a result. And if I do search for Bible, how many results do I get? I get 3,250,000,000 results if I just search for the word Bible on Google. And I get those results in amazingly 0.58 seconds. Now, you're not really getting all the results. You're getting the count of the results. And what are you? You're seeing the first 20 out of the data. Getting the data takes longer than actually counting the data because of the way databases work. Okay, let's continue then. The next query, we've saved that one as a criteria query. Now we're going to do one extra little thing here. We're going to modify this query and make sure to do a save object as after I make a change to it. I'm going to change this. I'm going to remove the like U star. Remove that, but it's by selecting and deleting. And then the owner postal code, I'm going to put 813 star. The only thing I'm doing here, though, is I'm not checking show. If I uncheck show, let's see what I get for results. I get the owner only in that one state, whose zip code was 813, but I don't see the zip code because I did not show that, even though the criteria applies to it. And I needed it to be there to have the criteria apply. If I don't care to see it in my results, I can uncheck the little show button. So not terribly useful. Usually it doesn't matter if I view that in my results, it doesn't affect me. So I often just keep the results, the checkbox on. Sometimes though, if it gets annoyingly large or a huge amount of data, you can say, well, don't show me that, just show me the results with that criteria on. So this is called criteria not shown in the results. And because this is a new query that we'd like to save as a separate name, I want to do a save as to store this. And I'm going to save it as AC2-13. So here's where the save as comes in handy. I have a query that works. I don't want to mess it up. I want to save it with a different name. So save as, file save as, and it's save object as now, because I'm not saving my database, I'm saving this object, this table, or this query as a new query. So that's queries and tables are known as objects inside my database. So now I click object and now another save as, and I'm going to give this a name, AC2-13. AC2-13 criteria hiding zip code column. So the criteria is on that for what data I get, but I don't need to see that field. Somewhat useful. I find I hardly ever use don't show it. Now comes something slightly different. We're going to create a query again on the owners table. So since I'm using the same query I had before and I'm not building another one, I'll go ahead and change this. And remember, I want to do a save object as. Don't do a Control S now. What I would like it to do is ask me for what state I am looking for. So I'm going to stretch out the owner state column here by just clicking on the edge right there, and I can adjust that column width because I want to put here in the criteria a special text. Starting with a left square bracket, I can put in a question to ask when I run this query, and I will put in state question mark and right square bracket. And it's in the criteria row. And watch the effect of that now. When I click view, it wants to know what state I am looking for, and what I type there shows up in my little pop-up window, and I'm going to put state UT. If I put UT in there, my results will show all my owners from Utah. I run it again. This time I put CO, and I see all my owners from Colorado. This is looking more and more like what an actual search would be on something like Google's gigantic database. But one thing I cannot do, I can't put state G star. You'd think it would take wildcards in the parameters, but I should do U star. U star, I know I should get Utah, but sadly wildcards don't work in the query criteria. I don't know if it's possible. Maybe there's a special way I could do it. Let's try U / star. Nope, still doesn't work. I can't give it a wildcard there. I have to give it the full state. So since this is one with a parameter query, we want to save this as a new query. And again, we want to do a save as, file save as, because I have an existing query I don't want to break. I want to keep it as is and save this object as a new query. So save object as, and then another save as, and I'll call this AC2-15 AC2-15 parameter query. When we run the query, it'll ask us for those parameters. So I can close this, and anytime I want to run that query, double click, it pops up what state. I type in CO, it gives me the results. To see the design of it, click on the design button, and I can see that's the square brackets gave me that question. Whatever goes in square brackets is the question that shows on that pop-up. All right, on to more queries. We want to get as many queries as we can get done, because we just want to be able to get a real good practice with them. Now we're starting a new query on the treatment cost table. So query on treatment cost, create, query design, choose the tables treatment cost, double click, and I can close the add tables. And since there's only 4 columns, let's go ahead and view all 4 columns. Double click, double click, double click, and double click. And before adding anything, let's just see what we have in there. Yep, there's the data we have in our treatment table. Now let's add some criteria. Cost is slightly different than the others. These are all short text. Cost is a number. So I can put 25 here, and I will see cost of 25. And notice here, it does not put quotes around the 25 when I type it, because that's a number and not a string. If I put 25 in the animal type, there is no 25, and I'll get no data for my result because there is no animal named 25. But if I put 25 in the cost, I'll see the treatments who cost 25. And we're going to save this query. Since it's a new one, I can do Control S. And I'm going to save this as AC2-17. AC2-17. I'll call it cost criteria. Now, just to play with this, watch what I could do with a less than in front of the 25. And I run the query, and I get all the treatments less than $25. There is no particular order to my treatments listed, and that's something we'll be looking at as well. We can do some sorting. Now let's add another criteria. Let's change the criteria. Remove the cost criteria. Well, let's just try what happens. We're looking at a different query. Sorry. We could put other criteria here. Just for fun here, let's put cost greater than 25. And there's my results. And I guess now we're going to do a comparison operator, but they want a different table this time. Although I am playing with comparison operator there on the cost. Don't worry about saving that. I'm going to close it. Not going to save my changes. And let's start a new query this time on the appointments table. Create, query design. And now in the book they give us little less information. They just say create a query on the appointments table. That would be select the appointments table, double click. And they name the fields that I want to view from the appointments table. And the fields I would like to see are date, time, treatment number, veterinarian, and patient ID. Oh, patient ID as the last field. Remember, I can choose to display them in any order I like. If I get the order wrong, remember I can adjust my columns. Again, before adding criteria, I view the data. Yes, there is data there. Now, the criteria is the date of the appointment is greater than 6/30/2021. And I hit enter or tab or arrow, and it puts pound signs around my date. That indicates that Access recognizes that as a valid date. And the pound sign just means, oh yeah, treat that as a date. Sort of like how Excel would recognize dates and then try to treat them as dates. Greater than means after that date, because the numbers of time go higher in the future. But I don't think Access I don't know, Access may be storing it as a Julian number. The results I get show me only the 2 appointments that came after June 30th. Okay? And I think we're saving that one. Yeah, we're going to save that one as AC2-18. So let's save this one, and then we'll modify it some more. Save as AC2-18, and we'll call it comparison criteria. So any date after June 30th of 2021. Now we get a little more complicated here. Now that we have this appointments table with this criteria, let's build on this in the criteria section. The criteria is what we're going to want to really become an expert at, because that determines my results. What fields are chosen, that's getting to be pretty easy. What if we put veterinarian B01 here. What does it mean when I put veterinarian B01 on the same line with the criteria appointment date after June 30th? One clue here is on the next line it shows an or. On the same line, think of this as being an and. Both of these things have to be true for data to show up. So the question is, do I have appointments after June 30th for the veterinarian B01? If I do, I'll get a result. Let's see. Click here. Yes, there is one appointment in October for veterinarian B01. So when it's on the same line, think of it as both these things have to be true. They're anded together, and if I view my database view, I will see, yes, there is an and between appointment date greater than June 30th and veterinarian equal to B01. There's the and criteria because of them being on the same line. That's called compound criteria, and we're going to save that one as AC2-20. And because I already have it, I'm going to do a file save as, save object as, another save as, and call that AC2-20 compound criteria. And I'm going to put in parentheses, it's the and criteria because it's on the same line. So same line in the design grid means that both have to be true. Now let's adjust this. Let's move the B01 from there, and let's put the B01 on the next line down. Either copy paste or retype it. Now think about what this means. The criteria is a date after June 30th for anybody, because there's no other criteria on that line, or it's an appointment for B01. So I'm getting all appointments after June 30th, plus in my results I'm also going to be displaying all the appointments for veterinarian B01, whether or not it came after June 30th. So I'm going to get more results now, and let's see what we get. Let's see, there's all the appointments after June 30th, plus any other appointments for veterinarian B01 that were not after June 30th, like his January appointment shows up. And his appointment on June 30th shows up because, and even though that's not after June 30th. And his other appointment on June 30th shows up. So those two show up, plus any appointment for B01, regardless of the date. So remember, that's the OR criteria, having them on two separate lines. And I can decide now, I'm going to go ahead and have I saved, yeah, we've saved that one. Oh, no, I want to save this one. This is the OR criteria. So let's do a save as AC2-21. So I'm going to do a file save as, save object as, and I'm going to call it AC2-21. And again, it's compound criteria using the OR. One more thing before we're done here. We can now sort the data and build a new query. So I'm close that query. Let's build a new one. This time it's only on the treatments table. Query design, treatments table, treatment cost table. And all I care to view are the treatment name and the treatment cost. I view the results and I see them in random order. Let's come here and let's now sort them by increasing treatment cost. This is where this sort comes in. I don't have any criteria, but I do want to list them by increasing costs. Now, when I view my results, I see all my treatments sorted from cheapest to most expensive. So when you click on that column of your inventory and you're searching on Amazon, sort by most relevant or by cost or by price descending. That's essentially what they're doing. They are adding to their criteria how things are ordered when the sort is complete. And if I view the SQL view, I see the order by has been added to my line of code. You don't have to learn that code. You learn a somewhat more user-friendly design grid to make that a little easier for you. But essentially adds the order by ascending. And let's save this very last query. Let's save this as AC2-23, and we'll be done for today. And we'll do some more next time. So let's do a save AC2-23, and we'll call it sorted. Yeah, sorted costs. Sorted by cost. And I'll add ascending. So all these things you're doing is a taste of interacting with the database. There's so much more complexity in the actual database design that database programmers use, but this may give you a taste of whether, if you think this looks pretty good and maybe interesting, having database skills is a payable career. And Access is one of the simpler, less powerful, but a good start learning just the basics of databases. So save that, and we'll continue building more queries on Monday. I am uploading the recording in case you got stuck on anything.